Good morning and welcome to the Sunday Conversation. We are with Kevin Blair. Kevin is the CEO and President of Pinnacle Financial, newly formed Pinnacle Financial. We're at the Synovus building here on 14th Street in downtown Columbus. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you for having me, Chuck. It's great to see you.
It's good to see you, and I really appreciate you taking time to talk to us because your company is in a transformational phase. How's it going? How's the transformation from Synovus Financial Corp to Pinnacle and the merger of a Columbus, Georgia bank with a Nashville bank going?
Well, look, I'll start by telling you, I think we've been under a transformation for years. You know, when I became the CEO 4 years ago, we had an investor day, our first investor day in 15 years. And at that investor day, we rolled out our game plan to not just be a great bank, but to be the best bank. And so we've been on that journey for 4 years. And it's been things like repositioning our bank to take advantage of what the marketplace gives us. It's about simplifying and streamlining the things that make our clients' experience better. It was about using technology, but keeping the high touch. I think so many companies today try to replace the human touch with technology. We believe it's high tech meets high touch, and we want to reinforce our culture. So I'll give you that little bit of a backdrop. We've been around for 137 years, but I tell everybody we're the youngest 137-year-old bank in the country because we've been trying to do some things that give us an even stronger competitive advantage, and I'll come back to that later. But to your point, back in July, we made the announcement that we're going to merge with Pinnacle Financial Partners. Over the next 5 months, we spent a lot of time getting the approval. I think what's important is in 124 days, we received the Federal Reserve's approval from application to notification, which is a very quick approval for a bank crossing over $100 billion. It only took 160 days for us from announcement to close. So we closed on January 1st. So when I say how's it going, we're only about 5 days in under the new company. But you know, what we've been focused on outside of just the approval process and getting ready for what we call legal day one, which occurred on January 1st, is combining two companies. Now, when we talk about merging two companies, I'm not talking about the infrastructure of taking systems, because that will come later. What I'm talking about is merging two heritages, merging two cultures, bringing together what made both companies great. And that's the challenge when you take two companies. Both companies are very prideful in what they've been able to accomplish. Pinnacle's been around for about 25 years, but during that 25-year period, they're the fastest growing bank in the United States. They have been exceptionally successful in not only growth, but client service, team member engagement. Synovus has been around for 137 years. We're very proud about what we've created. So when you put those two companies together, it's difficult because you're trying to meld not only the brands and the systems, but it's the culture. And that's what I would tell you is different about this merger. We're not trying to change who we are, either side. We're trying to scale what made both companies successful.
And that appears to be what is happening based on what I'm reading and seeing from other places. But I want to get real quick into what does this mean if you're a customer of Synovus or you're a customer of Pinnacle? You got a notice this week saying, hey, you know, this is happening, but are there any other changes that you're going to see if you've got loans or if you checking and savings accounts are with y'all guys?
In the short run, you really won't see any change. Because what happens in a merger is you go through the legal day one process, which, as I said, occurred on January 1st. We're not going to convert systems and convert our branding, which are the names on the buildings, until March of 27. And why is that? What we've done in this merger, unlike, again, other mergers, we're not going to go and build all new technology so that all clients, both sides, Pinnacle and Synovus legacy clients, are going to have to all move to new technology. What we're doing is we're going through almost painstakingly looking at what each company brings to the table from a technology standpoint, from a product standpoint, and what we're doing is we're selecting the best of both companies.
But wasn't that done in the due diligence to some degree?
Partly, but then, you know, there's a lot of work that goes into which technology is better. We did some of the due diligence. We took 3 months to figure out what core systems we were going to use, what the larger decisions were, but now we have to talk about what the client interfaces are, what the digital application is, what's the internal loan origination system. And so we've done that over the last 5 months. Over the next several weeks, we'll be making those decisions public, but then it'll take time to actually convert. So an example.
That's the minutia, right?
Yeah, very difficult, very granular. So we'll spend the next 14 months getting it right. And this is where other banks have failed. They've rushed these conversions because what happens is, even when you choose one company's technology, that means 50% of your clients have to merge to a new technology, move to a new client interface. We'll spend the next 14 months ensuring that the technology we're moving to has all the capabilities and functionalities that the old system, the legacy system, has. So when the new client comes to this new platform and says, well, I have all the same functionality and I may have some additional functionality. So we're taking a little longer time to make sure that that functionality is there. And number two, to create a concierge, white glove type conversion process where there's training that's done beforehand, that the day we cut over, that people aren't wondering how to log into the system or what their new password is.
So customer-centric.
Customer-centric, and that's who both companies are. I mean, we both excel in client experience. So what people will see, they'll get notifications. There'll be some legalese language that comes out with some of those disclosures, but it won't be until March of 27 that you'll see a change, that you may get a different statement with a different name on it or a different product or a different login. So the next 14 months, we're trying to really nail down the client experience to ensure that when we do cut over, that the client really is not impacted in a negative way. What we're hopeful is that the client will see that there's additional capabilities and functionality that has been brought to the table because we're taking the best of both companies.
We're getting near the end of this segment of this, and I want to ask the last question to you. You went from, I believe it was the 45th largest bank in the country to now you're the 15th. Are those numbers accurate?
It's 15th, 18th. It depends on what you count in that number, whether it's a core traditional bank or whether it's one of the credit card banks or a Canadian bank. But let's just say 18th. Largest.
Okay, 18th. We live in a society where size matters.
Mm-hmm.
Why does the size matter?
Well, let me tell you a concept that I've floated out there. I call it scale with a soul. And I say that because I think a lot of the banks and in any industry, as you get larger, everybody's chasing scale. And you're chasing scale because it becomes more expensive to do everything we do. The regulatory environment, inflationary expenses. So the larger you get, you can spread those fixed costs across a larger revenue base. And I'll give you a couple stats in banking that may surprise you, Chuck. If you just go back to 2010, the top 3 banks in the United States represented 30% of the deposits. Today, those top 3 banks represent 40% of the deposits. If you expand that even further, take the top 25 banks. If you go back 15 years, the top 25 banks held about 44% of the total country's deposits. Today, that number is closer to 70%. So when you say, why does scale matter? You can see the larger banks are getting larger. And to compete with those guys, JP Morgan annually spends somewhere between 12 and 18 billion dollars in technology and project expense. Our market cap in our company is going to approach $8 billion. So they're spending 2 and 3 times what the market cap of our company. So you've got to have scale to compete. You've got to have scale to spread those fixed expenses across a larger revenue base. But I go back to my concept, scale with a soul. These companies get bigger and they forget what got them where they were. They become so big and complex that they forget who matters most, which is the team member that works in that company and the clients. And what you'll see is that when we look at service scores, Pinnacle in the J.D. Powers survey, which is a consumer survey, ranked number 4 in the country out of the top 50 banks in client service. Synovus ranked number 6. So we're both in the top 6 in service quality. If you go to the same thing on the commercial side, Pinnacle ranks number 1 in the Southeast in commercial service quality. Synovus ranked 3rd. So we believe that client service is the differentiator. So as we get bigger, we've got to take advantage of scale, which means more capabilities, more functionality, more technology, bigger balance sheet, better risk management, but we can't lose sight of what got us there, which is high touch service. So I say big enough to compete, small enough to care. And that's the key to this whole thing working.
That's really interesting. That's a fascinating approach to it. We've reached the end of this segment, Kevin. We hope you'll come back and watch the rest of the Sunday conversation after this quick break. We're with Synovus or Pinnacle,
Pinnacle,
Pinnacle CEO and President Kevin Blair.